Something we're hearing a lot of these days is that there are still challenges in working in either a hybrid or a remote workplace situation. And there are culture challenges and there are alignment challenges and all sorts of challenges. The overall is health. Our hybrid workplace is not working for us. So what do we do? Today, we're going to talk a little bit about what the data says and what some actionable items are for making hybrid work. So let's get into it. First, we've got some exciting and interesting data from Gallup. This was done in 2022 when people were asked about what the advantages are for working hybrid. Is that there's better work-life balance for them because they have elements of being able to multitask elements of their lives. And this really bleeds into some of the other things that make it a positive, which is more efficient use of time, choosing when and where to work, which also leads into higher productivity. So these are really powerful reasons to move toward the hybrid model where it's possible, and it lets people avoid things like burnout, being able to focus on personal well-being, things that are really making it possible to grow, to retain workers, all of these important benefits. Now, you can see that the reasons, the percentage mentioning, it's nearly 60% for freedom, where to choose to work, more efficient use of time, and improved work-life balance. So of respondents, people had really strong positive feelings when it came to the advantages of remote work. And when it came to the challenges of hybrid work, some of these things are, really not surprising, right? Lack of access to work resources and equipment. You turn around and you're looking for that thing that makes it possible for you to do your job, and it's not there, right? Feeling less connected, less time for collaboration, and it makes it harder to have work relationships with colleagues in ways that really matter. So all of these challenges that you see here, disrupted processes, difficult coordination, some of these things are manageable with the right approach, right? Some of these top challenges, though, you want to note, are far less reported than the benefits, indicating that for people, the top advantages of hybrid work really substantially outweighs the challenges. So when we're thinking about how to leverage these benefits and address the challenges, let's think about the insights of how people are spending their time and valuing their time at home versus in the office. That's a really important point. So let's think about that. And, the question on everyone's mind, what are the best practices? And the answer is we don't have them yet. So it's still evolving. So what can we do in that situation? This is different than it was in March of 2020 in the United States, where remote work meant taking the hardware from the office and working in a place that was physically safe for you and your family. That meant setting up basic communication and collaboration strategy to get implementation of work. But it's different now, right? This is 4 years after the beginning of lockdown in the United States, and it means that the recommendations are different. And so what we have here, what we're going to be talking about, are some of the a la carte recommendations for culture and the hybrid workplace. So you take what you need, leave what you don't, and build strategies that work for you. So 3 key strategies. You got to lean into the advantages of hybrid work, depending on what it is for your organization. And it means quickly address the challenges. Don't let them fester. And maybe most importantly is being very intentional about how time is spent on site versus time at home. So leveraging that return on commute. So let's talk about matching task to location. This is the idea of return on commute. If I am going to make the effort to schlep into an office, it should be worth that commuting time and effort. People now compare what they're able to do in that commute time, and it's really valuable, right? They don't want to waste it sitting in traffic. And to identify what work needs to be effectively done in what location, there's some really interesting research that was published in MIT Sloan Management Review by Jonathan Trevor and Matthias Holweig. They identified 4 categories of work and what location makes sense for its execution. right? So individual procedural tasks like data processing, that can be performed without interacting with others. That means it's better for remote work, right? Only supervision in that situation becomes more difficult. When you have focused creative tasks, writing code, designing a brochure, if it requires little teamwork and is easily supported by technology that you might have on hand at home, these are easy to transition to virtual work, right? And then things that are a little more complicated, the coordinated group tasks like town halls or routine project work, regular review meetings, and group information sharing. That can be standardized, but it still needs human interaction. And this is more difficult to accomplish with remote participants, but it's still possible with good communication technology, right? And then finally, there's the collaborative creative tasks, product development, creative problem solving, strategic planning. These are most engaged in social interactions. These have important elements of innovation processes, and it means that doing this together in person has that inherently collaborative nature of these tasks, means that this is the greatest return on commute for people who are engaged in this type of work. So parsing these different categories into the ones that make the most sense for remote, what can be done in a hybrid format, and what really should be in person is an important element of that strategy. The next component, that next key that I mentioned earlier, is about addressing the challenges. Think about how you communicate, whose voices are heard, the technology that we use and what we don't use, and how it affects the way we engage. Relationships and how they're affected, social connections, these need to be nurtured intentionally. And in a hybrid format, that really matters, right? This is an indicator for professional growth, right? If we're fully remote, if we're hybrid, there are challenges that can be overcome, but they need to be strategically addressed. Next is about coordination and the challenges there. Who's in the loop? Who's not? If you're in the office, does that mean you have more access to decision makers? What are the impacts on the conversations that we have and we don't have? How quickly or slowly we coordinate? That needs to be factored in to the challenges that we're thinking about here. A topic that I mentioned a moment ago, creative collaboration. The speed of collaboration is affected by whether we're remote, in person, or hybrid, right? The sparks that come from insights we experience in person, can that be recreated in a remote format, right? And finally, the norms and values, expectations. It's the culture of the workplace. These are things that are easier to communicate in person, to pick these up by observation in person, and it's quite difficult to socialize new folks into a culture remotely. It's easier to lose sight of these things if they're not made explicit. So some of the things that folks who were in the workplace before March of 2020, the physical workplace, maybe took for granted are things that newer professionals need to be able to engage with very intentionally now. So how do we tackle this? We're recommending that you engage in what we call a hybrid hotspot analysis. And that's what this document is. We're using some of the research of Martine Haas, who created a similar analysis here that we've tweaked to be able to identify challenges that you can talk through with your teams and address them, right? So a lot of this is what we talked about a moment ago, right? You're looking at questions and challenges of communication, relationships, coordination, collaboration, and our culture, right? And give yourself a grade. How well are you doing on each of those points? With a team, you're going to want to talk through what the plan is to tackle that. And a plan is great, but you need to be able to think about how that gets worked into practice. So you need next steps. We're recommending that you take a document like this and work through it with your team. You need to assess where you are, share the document with your team, ask them to give a grade for each of those topics, have everyone come together, share their results, and look at what got the worst grade. So what's the alligator closest to the boat? That's the one you want to tackle first. Identify what the underlying issues are. Is it communication? Figure out a way to be able to get everyone on the same platform to communicate seamlessly. Maybe that's what your key action item is first, right? You're going to repeat with other hotspot items so that you understand the challenges that you're facing, right? And then look at the ways you want to tackle those items. That's in your plan. And then create a schedule for implementation and follow through. So that's all well and good, but how do we do it? We're sharing a copy of the hybrid hotspot analysis with you. You can download it right off our website here at this link, marianastrategies.com/hybrid-resource. And if you want to learn more about the background, the readings, and the research that I mentioned, this is where you can find it. Really fascinating stuff that we think is really helpful for your workplace. Do you have questions? Let us know. We want to hear all about it. And thank you for coming to our YouTube channel.